So welcome to the VET S.O.S. Entrepreneur Spotlight. Hey, remember, don't drown in a sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S. hotline. So, at the VET Entrepreneur Spotlight is proud to be affiliated with the Neil Haley Show and sponsored by Spear Point Solutions. Spear Point Solutions is a one-stop shop for leading-edge product services and training from multiple vendors, from your AI training to your corporate gifts and much, much more. They have everything you need to help your organization thrive in a modern economy. So check out the valuable offerings at spearpointonline.com. I'll say that again, spearpointonline.com. It's a mouthful. Spearpointonline.com. Remember to use our code VET S.O.S. That's VET S.O.S. on anything that you purchase there. That will help us continue our mission, improving the lives of those who have served. So we have a special guest today, Miss Leora Opstelten. So she holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology and a Master of Education in Educational Counseling from the University of Southern California. Love it out there. It's beautiful weather. She has served as the Career Counselor at the Veteran Resource Center at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, at the Veteran Resource Center at the University of Southern California, California State University, Texas A&M, and the University of Houston at Sugar Land. She is also a former corporate recruitment professional. She has holds the position of recruiter and recruiting coordinator in the legal technology, healthcare, staffing, and hospitality industry. So the mouthful I got going on right here. So Leora is also certified to administer and interpret Myers-Briggs psychological assessment instruments. When she's not working, she's passionate about fitness, football, man, I like that, and spending time with her dog, America. Welcome to the VET S.O.S. Entrepreneur Spotlight, Miss Leora. How you doing today, Miss Leora?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I am doing amazing. So I'm gonna hop into the interview really quick.
Yeah.
So I know you're a military spouse. When it was time for your husband to transition out, looking back on it, what would you say the three biggest lessons that you learned in the transition from that military life do we have? Because even as a military spouse, you serve as well, and then moving on to get into the civilian life. So tell us how that shaped you today and what lessons did you
Yeah,
learn?
so I actually met my late husband when he was on terminal leave. So I was never actually a military spouse. Although in a previous life I had planned to be, which is how I ended up building the business, which is a story for a later time. But I
Gotcha.
think the biggest things that I saw was just recreating that identity, that sense of self,
Mhm.
as a civilian was really
Mhm.
something that he struggled with.
Mhm.
Finding a position, not in terms of do I have the skill set, can I interview well, things like that, but just um, knowing if something is the right fit, knowing if it's going to give him the satisfaction that he got when he served, all of those sort of non-tangibles.
Yep.
Um, I think one of the things he struggled with was just there wasn't this sort of like mission that you have in the
Yeah.
military, right?
Absolutely.
You're not serving a higher purpose. You're helping a company to make money. So
Mhm.
that for him was something that he struggled with. One of the things I think I said to him on a daily basis in each of the jobs that he held after he got out, because, and this is something that's really, really common, is the first job he got, the second job he got, and I think even the third job he got, didn't stick.
Okay.
Um, but I used to tell him with every single one of those, I'm like, this isn't life or death, right?
Yes.
I know that that's what you're used to, but this is corporate America. This is not life or death. It's money.
Mhm.
You gotta remember that. You gotta bring the stress level down. It's not worth it.
Yes.
Life's too short. No one's gonna die. And that's something that took him a really, really, really long time to finally internalize. And I think that's hard for a lot of people coming out because a lot of the jobs, those support positions, even someone's life is on the line, and you might not know them,
Yes.
but everybody's working towards that bigger picture of saving lives.
Absolutely.
Um, so that in combination with this like adjustment in identity, um, and I think probably the thing that I sort of identify with it the most, coming from the career counseling background, is knowing if something is a fit. It's really, really easy to be like, hey, I got a job offer, I'm going to take it, and then ignore all of the flags that you see during that interview process. Which is why
Absolutely.
a lot of people are like, this first job didn't stick, the second job didn't stick, and they have all of this turnover in terms of their
Hmm.
employment, and it messes with your head.
Yeah.
I don't want to drop an F bomb right now. But it really like if you can't hold a job when you get out, like that again messes with your identity, your sense of self, your self worth. It goes to so many things that I think for most people is really secure and stable when they're active duty. And so all of a sudden you're like thrust out without any sort of structure. You have to create it yourself, trying to create a new identity, and you feel like you're failing because you're not able to
Yeah.
hold a job. And that's really hard not to internalize.
Hmm.
So those were probably the biggest things that I saw for his transition.
Yes.
And I think they're very common.
Got you. So you caught really what we call the tail end of his career. I mean, he's on terminal leave. You didn't get a chance to go through a lot of the deployments and things that a lot of military spouses do. You really caught the tail end
Yeah, I got
of his career. Yeah.
what I thought was going to be the easy part, to be
Yeah.
honest, because I
Exactly.
know how hard it is to be a military spouse.
Yeah.
Because I was many, many years ago engaged to an active duty Marine,
Mm.
who I guess technically is still infantry, and so did those deployments, and I built a remote business because he was going to be stationed in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I understood there's a lot of flexibility required. There's a lot of single parenting that people do. And so I was like, cool, this is going to be a cakewalk, not really realizing how hard that transition is for folks who are
Absolutely.
getting out.
Absolutely. Very, very difficult for a lot of us veterans making that transition of a career you've had that's fostered your entire, basically your entire natural life.
Hmm.
Especially those of us who joined at a young age of 18, 19, 20, and then you're in there for a very long time. So definitely that transition can really be something that people struggle with. So going back to um, when the moment came for you to decide, because you've had a lot of veteran military resource jobs at UCLA, USC, um, what was that moment that sparked your entrepreneurship? Like, what was going on in your life at the time that you said, hey,
Yeah.
I want to build a business to be an entrepreneur? Instead of, just maybe going and taking the safe route and going back to another military resource center at another college.
Yeah, so it's funny because I touched on this very briefly, but when I was getting out of recruitment, because as you mentioned in my bio, like I used to work as a coordinator and a recruiter and
Mm-hmm.
all these different industries, and when I was working in staffing, I was actually trying to hire veterans for these long-term temp positions, these federal temp
Mm-hmm.
positions, and I kept looking at resumes, and I was with my Marine ex at the time, and I was like, why are these resumes so awful? Like, I know there's a transition program, but these are just trash.
Yeah.
And I was like, your resume is better, and like, you have much fewer like transferable corporate skills than most.
Yeah.
You can't really put like able to withstand like explosions like on a resume, but like
Mm-hmm.
your resume looks great, and these are I don't know what they did. And he's like, well, TAPS is really awful. And so I was like, well, that's shitty. Los Angeles has a huge, huge problem, and I think it's getting a little bit better with homelessness among veterans.
Yeah.
And that was something that has always really made me angry. Here are people who've literally put life and limb on the line, and they come home and they have to live on the streets. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's not okay. That should never be okay. And so I started doing some volunteer work, doing resume review, things like that. Um, and fast forward to probably like 10 months, 12 months later, I got laid off from a recruiter position somewhere else. And I was like, do I go back to school? Do I get another recruiting job? So I ended up going back to school to do career counseling with the intention of working in these veteran resource centers, doing career counseling.
Okay.
Um, Turns out that's not like a real thing. Those were both positions that I sort of created for myself
Uh-huh.
at SC as a grad student. I like inserted myself there. And then I did some networking and I met the director of UCLA's Veteran Resource Center. So I was like, do you want me to come in and do this? And so I wasn't really able to do it in the way that I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was in my personal life, I got engaged to this active duty Marine, and he was like, I'm going to be stationed in like the mountains in California, like 2 hours from the closest community college. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm a Southern California girl. I don't do snow. Like, I don't drive in it. I don't live in it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna freeze to death. The mountain lions are gonna eat me. But I didn't want to not work. I was in the middle of grad school, and I was like, God damn it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna use this master's. I didn't want it, but I'm gonna use it. And so I built this business with the
Okay.
intention of being able to work with folks all over the country, in whatever time zone they were in, without having to venture into the snow and get eaten by a mountain lion, or drive off a mountain. Um, And then life happened again and the engagement ended. So I was like, well, I'll go into higher ed.
Okay.
That was my original plan. So I might as well just see that through. Because, life happens and you got to make the best of things. And so I did that for a while. And I realized after a number of years that there's a lot of other things that go into working in higher ed that is
Mm-hmm.
not career counseling, even if it's a career
Yeah.
counseling job. So I was like, I've got this business. I really want to refocus on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really able to, after my time at University of Houston, I tried to go back to it. And then, of course, my husband lost his job. So as things happen, you got to be flexible. So went back to working in higher ed. Um, but essentially, since January of this year, I've been focused entirely on my business because it was one of those like, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it sort of situations. So I've been very lucky, and it's something that's provided me with a lot of flexibility, which has been especially important in the last couple months for me.
Okay. So now that you're in the thick of being an entrepreneur, we've heard a lot of stories, how hard it is, how tough it can be. But for you, what's been the most rewarding part about being an entrepreneur? That's part one of the question. And then part two would be, what lights you up every day when you wake up when you are an entrepreneur?
Um, I think the biggest thing for me personally is the flexibility of being able to manage my own schedule. My
Mm,
husband actually passed away unexpectedly in March, and so
yes.
there's been a lot of stuff that like I've needed to handle.
Yes.
And California's got time that you like bereavement leave, and I think you got like 40 hours or something. Um, but honestly, that would not have been enough time for me to have arranged the funeral with the VA, like gone to Colorado for it, like handled the estate. I need to find a new place because I'm in this huge house because his kids went to live with their bio mom after he passed. So like all of these things that happened in life that like I would not have been able to handle the way that I did if I was working for someone else. And so just being
Yeah.
able to like do my marketing work when I have time, when I have energy, and then handle the other things that like life has thrown at me, I think has been one of the biggest things. So I think what gets me up every day is just having the opportunity to do what I love, and really be able to focus on, yeah, there's business stuff, there's marketing I have to deal with. But honestly, I've done a lot of like outsourcing and hired a marketing company to handle a lot of that. So I can really focus on, getting clients who want my help, who need my help. So every time I get a referral from somebody or get a new client and get a new package booked, it's like cool. Like I get to see this person go from I'm super lost to okay, I get it. I know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing now. I know how to move forward, and that for me is why I do what I do.
Got you. Now you've mentioned something that, I mean, was a tragic thing that happened for you in your life back in March. Your husband passed away. I mean, that had to be one of the hardest things you had to deal with, um, and I'm sure throughout this entrepreneurship journey. I mean, how did you deal with that for one, and then two, what was it that kept you from not saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do the entrepreneur thing. I don't want to have my own business. And what kept you going after you dealt with that?
I think a big part of it was I know that like he was really, really proud of what I was doing.
Mm,
And if he knew that I was like, no, I'm done, I'm going back, like he would have been so disappointed. And he would not have wanted to be the reason that I gave up.
yeah.
Because he knew that it was something that was important to me, and so it was important to him that I focus on it and put the work in, and so I didn't want to sort of let him down, so to speak.
Mm, okay. Got you. So now, did for you, I know you guys got married closer in his career. Did you plug into any type of military resources, maybe mentor, community programs to help launch a business?
Um, I didn't because it was something. The business had been sort of um, the initial inception had happened like so many years ago,
Got you.
that I didn't feel like I wanted to tap those resources. I also have a little bit of that like imposter syndrome of like I'm not really a military spouse. Like I met him when he was when he was on terminal leave. Like I don't have the experiences that like a true military spouse has had.
Hmm.
I know a little bit more about the experience than the average bear, simply because of my knowledge of the population in general.
Yes.
Um, but I don't want to like make it seem like, oh yeah, like I totally know what it's like, because I don't. Like I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I simply have a little bit more insight, knowing kind of the culture, essentially.
Okay. Now, we've been talking about it for about 15 minutes now. So tell us, what is Career Counselor by Leora? What exactly do you do? Who do you serve? And what makes your company different than a lot of others
Yeah.
out there?
So my primary clientele are actually transitioning service members and veterans. Um, I have a special gift for translating military speak. I like to joke that like none of the branches get along because you all speak different languages, right?
We do.
Like
That's very true.
Army doesn't speak Marine, Marine doesn't speak Navy. Like no one communicates effectively. How in the world
Yeah.
are you supposed to do that with civilians if you can't communicate with each other? Right? And so my my area of expertise is really like, okay, you've just told me something in Marine. What is
Hmm.
that in English? And just sort of cutting through the jargon,
Yeah.
um, and being able to take the skills that someone has developed during their service and translate it into a civilian context. In whatever civilian context someone's interested in. One of my favorite things to do, actually, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, this was my MOS, so this is what I'm going to do as a civilian. And it's like, well, why?
Hmm.
Is that what you
Yeah.
enjoy doing, or is that what you feel like you have to do?
Yeah.
And really challenging folks to think outside the box and think about, like, given the opportunity, what do you want to do? And if they're like, I don't know, but I feel like I have to do this, whatever this was, helping them to look at other options. Because you don't have to do what your MOS was. Um, it's just not the case. It's very common for people, especially if they enjoy it, because they're like, I'm good at this, I've been doing it forever,
Hmm.
to sort of assume they don't have any other options. But just show someone their options to help them to explore other options if they want to, is
Hmm.
something that I find very rewarding because a lot of people, that light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, cool, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know I had the skills. I didn't know that I enjoyed it. I didn't know that it was an option.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do is career exploration. There's a couple assessments. I don't usually suggest the like paid assessments because they're so expensive just to like purchase them. But there's a couple of free assessments that are valid and reliable that I will have someone take and I'll look at the results with and use it as a sort of a jumping off a jumping off, like a springboard. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry. A springboard to like look at other things that might be enjoyable, right? Because not everybody likes their MOS. You just kind of get used to it. And now
Yeah.
you get to do whatever you want. And so do whatever you want.
Got you. So we've talked about the business. So tell people, where can they connect to you? Where should they go to connect with you, Leora?
So my website's always probably the best option. It's
Okay.
careercounselingbyleora.com. My email is just at gmail.com. I always suggest doing a free 15-minute initial consultation, which you can find under there's like a book consultation link on my website. It's just a chance to chat with me briefly. Like I said, I do everything over Zoom, so you can do it from the comfort of your home, from your car, from wherever. And I can get an understanding of where you're at. Do you know what you want to do? Do you think you know what you want to do? You have not a fucking clue what you want to do.
Yeah.
And sort of recommend, a really tailored, if necessary, package or set of services is not going to waste your time, is not going to waste your money, but gets to the heart of what you need support with.
Yes. Gotcha.
It's also a chance for them to ask questions, to get to know me, because you gotta trust the person you're working with. There's got to be some kind of relationship. So just being able to connect with people initially, I think, is really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you so much. For all those listening, make sure you connect with Leora to get that initial consultation so she can get your career up and running as soon as you transition out. So we want to thank you for joining us on the VET SOS today. On behalf of the VET SOS family, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us. You can find VET SOS podcasts on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and all other social media platforms as well. Make sure to subscribe and follow VET SOS so you don't miss anything. Remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET SOS lifeline. Thank you so much, Ms. Leora. Greatly
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming onto the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.